morning, dear guests and participants. I'm delighted that you have joined us today. As the coordinator of this event, I'm pleased to announce the beginning of the 24th International Music Theory Conference, Principles of Music Composing, Ethno in Contempo. This is the 24th conference, and the event dates back more than 20 years. Since then, each year a specific and different topic has been discussed and analyzed, such as creative process, sacred music, the phenomena of rhythm, melody, orchestra, sonorism, and many others. Each conference has been accompanied by a peer-reviewed scientific publication in English. The 24th International Conference, Principles of Music Composing, invites scholars to explore the role of ethnicity in the modern world. The goal of the conference is to reassess the significance of ethnicity in the music of the 20th and 21st centuries, with a focus on highlighting the aesthetic and technical possibilities of its expression. During the 3 days of the conference, 17 papers will be presented by speakers from countries such as Italy, United Kingdom, Poland, Bulgaria, Ghana, Romania, Georgia, Finland, and Lithuania. The scientific program of the conference will be complemented by 2 concerts. The entire event is streamed live on the YouTube channel of Music Academy, thus part of audience is also expected to watch online. I would like to thank the organizers and supporters of this event. The conference is organized by Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre and Lithuanian Composers Union and supported by the Lithuanian Council for Culture. Now I would like to invite the Vice Rector of the Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre, Račiūnaitė, to say a few words.
Thank you. I will be short. Good morning, dear colleagues, esteemed guests, dear friends. Welcome to the, which one? 21st? Already 21st conference of on the principles of music composing, and indeed it's a big joy for me to be here with all of you, since we explore the influences of ethnicity in contemporary music today and in music in general today. And and actually this year we focus on understanding how influences, ethnic influences, have shaped the music of the 20th and 21st century. And indeed, throughout history, probably these influences have been overlooked. And now it is time to rethink and reevaluate the real significance and potential of the influences and impacts. And this conference not only reflects on the connections between local and global identities, but also prepares us for the next year's celebration of Lithuanian genius, composer and painter Mikalojus Konstantinas Čiurlionis 150th anniversary. I want to express my deep gratitude to all the colleagues and actually many people who have made this conference possible since it started in 1999, and I especially thank the current coordinators, Associate Professor Dr. Marius Baranauskas and Dr. Andrius Masliakovas. Thank you very much, and really your efforts helped us all come together and share our ideas, and actually to enrich our understanding of music in general. So let us inspire each other and foster creativity in all these days ahead, and I wish you very fruitful discussions and just being together, and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I would also like to invite the chairman of the Lithuanian Composers Union, Mikalojus.
Thank you, and I'm very glad to be here. And actually, because I'm a very big fan of that conference, and I have some personal connection with it, because my earlier career was connected with this conference, doing some very practical tasks and helping to make this conference happen, actually. But each year I'm very interested what topic will be next year, because this brilliant team actually manages each year to find very interesting angles to practical things what are composers doing. And since this conference not only bringing the artistic research and analyzing of the creativity, it also has a special community of people who are very interested deeply into how music is made, how music is perceived, what it signifies. So this year topic is very particular due to the connection with the history of Lithuanian composers, because we have very good composers, starting from Mikalojus, Konstantinas, Čiurlionis, Feliksas Bajoras, Bronius Kutavičius, whose works were very deeply rooted into archaic culture of Lithuania. And it is very interesting to analyze also other ties which are made abroad in all the world, and to analyze this connection, how the past is influencing the present, is very interesting because well, this time is very strange, and we're living in the time where everything is changing in very fast pace. And composers and musicians and, well, all artists usually are getting the influences from the very different times, and from the present, from the future, but also from the past. So this topic is really very relevant. So I would encourage you to have very sincere and passionate discussions about how contemporary art is influenced by ethno. And so welcome you at Lithuanian Music Academy, and have a good time here.
And finally, I would like to introduce the head of the scientific committee and the founder of the conference, Daiva, and maybe a few words.
It is a great pleasure for me to welcome dear guests, participants, and all those who have come to the 24th International Conference of Music Theory, Principles of Music Composing in Vilnius. I wish all of you productive and creative work, new scientific ideas, a pleasant atmosphere of communication, and all the very best. Good luck.
Thank you. So we're looking forward to a very active and productive work, accompanied by lively discussions. And now we will start with the first session, which is entitled Interactions Between Ethno and Contempo, Theory and Practice. And the first speaker today is Daiva Račiūnaitė Vyčinienė. Welcome. She will present paper Sutartinės as a sign of Lithuanian identity, interaction between ethno and contempo.
It is a big honor for me to be the first speaker at his excellent conference. My English isn't good, but I hope you will understand me. For a foreign listener, the first thing to do is to give at least a brief introduction to the subject of my presentation, Sutartinės. The name for Lithuanian ancient polyphonic songs, or giesmės, chants, called Sutartinės, derives from the verb sutarti, to agree a tune with another person or to reach an accord. Summarizing the insights of other scholars and my own long-standing dual experience as a scholar and singer, I would like to highlight the following essential characteristics of Sutartinės today. Linear polyphonic, imitative polyphonicity, the creation of the whole from small, constantly recurring elements of rhythm and melody. Similar compositional principles are also characteristic of traditional textiles. There is example of skudučiai composition, škitskate. There is my graphical notation and Lithuanian traditional textile. Also cyclicity. An abundance of onomatopoeic words such as tuto, dauno, tatato, tititi, and the like. Bitextuality. A syllabic relationship between music and text, chopping, clacking, cackling. Polyrhythmics and rhythmic complementary which frequent syncopation. Active syncopated dance rhythm reminiscent of Sutartinės syncretism, relationship of music, language, and movement. A short example of dance Sutartinė. A very important signed binary melodic structure. It's archive sample from 1936. Achieving maximum roughness by beating different voices or vocal parts. Good beating, streaking of voices, it means sutarimas or harmony. And last, sutarimas as a process, the birth of Sutartinės each time anew, here and now. More than 100 years ago, folklorist canon Adolfas Sabaliauskas marked Sutartinės as a potential foundation for the identity of Lithuanian professional music. The words Sabaliauskas, written in 1994, sound prophetic. Sutartinės will be a limitless source of tone material for works that will shake the depths of the Lithuanian soul and preserve a Lithuanian citizen's immortal nature. They will flute not only the soul of Lithuanians, but also those of foreigners who have a sense for real beauty. Although Jadvyga Čiurlionis, the founder of Lithuanian ethnomusicology, had already written of Sutartinės in 1938, 8, stating that musicality they have no relation to other songs. Sutartinės music is an entirely singular and unusual phenomenon destined to die out in our era. The Lithuanian composer of the time, Kazimieras Viktoras Banaitis, stated that whose sutartinės, harmonized in seconds, often in harsh dissonance, are truly a treasure chest of our folk music. You might say that Lithuanian village singers become sophisticated, emancipated dissonance a long time ago and are centuries ahead of the music of European modernists. Edwin Geist, a composer and musicologist who came to Lithuania from Berlin, was close to his statement, observing that sutartinės represent an earliest type of atonal music. We can perceive sutartinės preempting to 20th century trend towards atonality in the arts. Regretting that sutartinės have already disappeared in his period, Geist raises an original idea. Since one on the laws of the theory of homogenesis maintains that nothing that exists ever vanishes, we should try to view the disappearance of sutartinės as an alleged wilting. The mystical bridge from sutartinės to the musical phenomena of our days is proof that the archaic Lithuanian song type has not disappeared. The musical characteristics of sutartinės, sharp seconds harmonies, syncopated rhythms, rhythmic motorism, ostinato, are woven into the work of many 20th century composers. Stasys Vainiūnas, Vytautas Montvila, Teisutis Makačinas, Vytautas Barkauskas, Feliksas Bajoras, Algirdas Martinaitis, and others. However, only a few composers, Juozas Gruodis, Julius Juzeliūnas, and Bronius Kutavičius, have made sutartinės a significant feature of their creative programs. The individual style of his composer is consciously constructed from Lithuanian folklore, primarily sutartinės, and modern means of musical expression. So I will talk a bit more about the work of these composers. Combining elements of sutartinės music with modern means of musical expression, Gruodis eventually developed an individual style which, as composer Šarūnas Nakas notes, is quite close to the stylistic of Bela Bartok. However, not all contemporaries accepted his conception of Gruodis nationalism in music. Musician Teodoras Brazys condemned Gruodis for his use of folk themes in his symphonic prologue, in the context of musical stylistic of the first half of the 20th century. Juzeliūnas also searched for the grain of Lithuanianness in his work. Juzeliūnas shared his conception of the interaction between ethno and contempo in his theoretical work, The Question of the Structure of Chord. The composer observed that the national uniqueness of Lithuanian folk music is most evident in the peculiarities of the intervallic structure of the ancient Lithuanian monodic melodies and sutartinės ones. The phenomenon of bitonality, two tonics, found in vocal sutartinės helps the composer to justify the principle of binary construction, which became the central axis of his innovative theory. His theory nowadays successfully developed by composer Girmantas Seneliauskas. Based on his theory, Juzeliūnas composed the sonata for voice and organ Melika in 1973. If up to that time the characteristic sign of sutartinės-like nature of the Lithuanian music of that era was the harmony of seconds combined with active syncopated rhythms, then Melika marks a turn to a completely new concept of sutartinės. In his work, a different spatial and multidimensional expression of sutartinės is evident. Lyrical meditation can also be seen. The sound of sutartinės onomatopoeic words that that have no meaning become the idea and content of the work. Onomatopoeic word phonetically expressing a certain emotional state and sound color become the titles of the parts. Lingauda, judabra, sadula, concentration, anxiety, longing. Zoliūnas concept of sutartinės and their theoretical generalization probably laid the foundation for Kutavičius' cellular minimalism, which originated from the sound of sutartinės. Kutavičius himself defined minimalism as follows. In ancient Lithuanian songs, here is the maximum number of sound, little rhythm, small range. The form is open without beginning and end, a segment of time. By combining the principles of Lithuanian folklore, ascetism, archaism, repetitiveness, and multi-layeredness in a unique way, Kutavičius created a special sense of time and space, and in many cases, the image of a ritual taking place here and now. For example, short sounding from iš Jotvingio akmens oratoriją. For example, in the oratorio Magic Circle of Sanskrit, the infinite canons of many parts, of course, the archaic ways of extracting sound with specific voices, skudučiai panpipes, metalophones, kutaphones, violin bows, entirely suits the aesthetics of sutartinės. Each part seems to be open as though there was neither a clear beginning nor ending. Sounding of kutaphonas. Musicologist Rūta Gaidamavičiūtės observation about the further development of sutartinės expression in the works of Lithuanian composers is important. After the restoration of Lithuanian independence, it has been more and more boldly argued that sutartinės are not just polyphonic Lithuanian folk song with a peculiar structure and special sonority of rhythm, but perhaps hymns with a sacred purpose, performing by groups of well-sung women. After a long history of post-war integration, when the authors highlighted the lively and playful origins of these runs, composers began to delve more freely into their true nature. The musicologist notes that at the time sutartinės began to sound in the programs of many folklore ensembles, of the approach to them also changed in the works of composers. At this point, it is necessary to mention the new approach to sutartinės in the Lithuanian folklore movement. For some time, separate concerts of sutartinės were held during the international folklore festival Skamba Skamba Kankliai, and sutartinės were played in various courtyards of Old Town of Vilnius and in the courtyard of the Vilnius University. In the long run, the bunch of groups showing different levels and understanding of and interpretations of sutartinės start to bore me, the organizers of the aforementioned sutartinės concert. I wanted to present the sutartinės in such a way that the listener would feel the full power of their sharp sound, the magical hypnotic effect, and the suspended flow of time. In his way, an attempt was made to return from the profanum of the Sutartinės to her inherent sacrum, choosing a suitable and completely different space, Vilnius Bernardine Church. The deep and poetic feedback of the audience would allow us to say that it was a success. You can see the words of composer Martinaitis. I think that my own idea to organize other kinds of Sutartinės concert, the music rituals of the Sutartinės, could have been influenced by the ritualized oratorias of Kutavičius. More than 10 years, I was a member of Vilnius New Music Ensemble and participate in many oratorias Kutavičius. When thinking about the work of today's composer, one can notice another interpretation of Sutartinės. On the one hand, moving away from the specific musical material, but on the another way, approaching the essence of Sutartinės, their deep understanding, as if reproducing a distance image of Sutartinės. It is a kind of continuation of the creative lines of Juzeliūnas and especially Kutavičius. Germanavičius also talks about similar things when discussing the work of Lithuanian composers at the post-minimalistic period. Remigijus Mergelys, Justė Janulytė, Egidė Medikšaitė. Time-space concept of Sutartinės is also reflected in the works of Ričardas Kabelis. Paying attention not only to the already known features of Sutartinės, but also to the special articulation of his chants, the distinct timbres of the singers. Various creative projects combining the archaic and the modern cannot be avoided today. Composers collaborate not only with professional musicians, but also with groups of Sutartinės singers representing the authentic Sutartinės sound. You can see some works, Binenvenš by Algirdas Martinaitis, Fluxus Sutartinės by Rytis Mažulis, Genus by Remigijus Mergelys, Go Sutartinės Gau Mindaugas Urbaitis, Vilnius Chronicles, Gediminas Rimkus Rimkevičius. In most of them participated my group Sutartinės 3-4, sometimes Utara. However, I will leave the work of composers aside in order to discuss at least briefly the various directions of the use and existence of Sutartinės in the modern culture. As a representative of the living Sutartinės tradition, I am particularly interested in phenomena related to various alternative forms of Sutartinės manifestation. I will pay attention to different ways of manifestation of Sutartinės as a sign of Lithuanian identity on the 21st century. Authentic forms of Sutartinės in projects combining different ethnic musical cultures. You can see some examples. In this project, Sutartinės obviously become a sign of Lithuanian identity, Lithuanian mentality, often contrasting musical traditions representing Eastern and Western cultures meet in him, highlighting the distinctiveness of each of them and possible point in contact. Here in the project Mogam and Sutartinės dialogues, completely different traditions are untied by meditativeness.
Ram Husseinov, the rising star of Mugam.
mühtemmedir. Görkeminize güzel, nazlı gelin görkemidir.
Sutartinės as a marker of ethnic music interdisciplinary projects, alternative music, visual arts, jazz, for example, WAFT, international projects at the festival Free Culture, Dansk Vilnius, Circle of Rasas, Undiscovered Sensations. About Undiscovered Sensations, Kuliavas thought to preserve the archaic sacred nature of Sutartinės. You can read their words, and short, simple. Sutartinė močia. With the group Utara. Short about one more project, Circle of Rasas. The elements of Lithuanian, Indian, and Spanish culture traditions inspire live improvisation. Participants Brigita Bublytė, singer and actress, 3-4, Vyšniauskas, jazz player, and many other artists. Monophonic layouts of bitonal melodies of Sutartinės, or just parts of melodies. A lot of projects on his way. For example, Veronika Povilionienė with Petras Vyšniauskas, Sutartinė. One of the newest projects is Electronic Sutartinės, Viktor Diavara, producer and musician, and Laurita Peleniūtė. Here we can hear a little pop music voices of a singer and some deconstructed metro-rhythmic system of Sutartinės with some final cadences. There is original. And here is new version. Synthesis of electronic music and Sutartinės. Sound recording of Sutartinės singers group are used, or group sing live in concerts. For example, War song by Linas Paulauskis from Sutartinės party. Rožė Narovskį antrą tylio, dance music. Association with Sutartinės due to the use of onomatopoeic words. You can see two compositions in his way. Čiūto tūto by Goda Isada, presented at the Eurovision 2011. It's interesting that particular combination of two refrains, čiūto and tuto, does not exist among the authentic Sutartinės text. Almost 200,000 of them have been recorded. And another example, also Stay čiūto tuto by Monika Linkytė. And I am thinking, what is his plagiat? Again, the question arises, is here a connection with the world of Sutartinės in his song? Or is it just episodic characteristic onomatopoeic words, which is typical syncopated rhythmic formula? More generally, does the refrain čiūto tuto in the last two compositions have the same deep, mysterious meaning as in Sutartinės? Or does it become the basis, the central axis of the composition? Although Linkytės song caused a lot of discussion, there was more praise for the singer in the media, saying that her Eurovision song is very Lithuanian, because it is based on the elements of Sutartinė. Of course, another playful approach to the refrains of Sutartinė is also possible. Final word. Instead of conclusion, I would suggest considering whether in all the discussed cases of the use of Sutartinės, of the elements, they can still be recognized as Sutartinės and seen as a sign of Lithuanianness. Maybe it would be worth reviewing how many essential features of Sutartinės listed at the beginning of my report remain in today's alternative electronic popular music projects. After all, many of these features have been and still are imported for composers of different generations, perhaps without directly linking them to the Sutartinės. From Juzeliūnas, Kutavičius, Kabelis, Janulytė, Medekšaitė to representative of the youngest generation, Milda, Mickutė, and others. It is clear that today's concept of Sutartinės is shaped by a wide variety of factors. Club, electronic and popular music playing in the environment. The numerous audio and video recordings of various Sutartinės singers group, YouTube, SoundCloud, and live performance at concerts. Various forms of Sutartinės singing, training, education in the general public. Sutartinės cycles, women cycles, Sutartinės gyms, Sutartinės meditation, Sutartinės practice and yoga, Sutartinės and cacao, psychedelic in Sutartinės society. New research of Sutartinės, cognitive, psychoacoustic, and their popularization in lectures at the Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre, as well as in public lectures, seminars, courses. Some artists are more influenced and attracted by the rhythm of club music, electronic music. Others tend towards meditation, dissolving the boundaries of time and space in Sutartinės-like music, creating cosmic harmony, and still others tend to ritualism, the creation of peculiar music rituals. In some the creative projects I have discussed, the musical environment characteristic of Sutartinės no longer exist at all. In other, the melodic inflection of Sutartinės are changed beyond recognition. The metro-rhythmic structure characteristic of them has been destroyed, and the cyclical structure become irrelevant. Moreover, very often the melody of Sutartinės is sung not by a group of singers, but by one person, which is already inconsistent with the very name and concept of Sutartinė, and violates the essence of his chants, the agreement, sutarimas, of the group members, vertical and horizontal coordination of voices, breaking of voices during singing. It is sung in a pop-style voice, etc. The question arises, can be distorted images represent the uniqueness of Lithuanian music and in general Lithuanian mentality? Of course, over the many years of practicing of Sutartinės, I have developed my own standard image of the manifestation of Sutartinės in contemporary culture, so I may not be objective. It is, sorry. It is obvious that the returning eternal cycle of Sutartinės, which according to Geist has never been broken, every certain period of time brings a different concept of Sutartinės, a different interpretation of them in musical creation. We can observe this in the work of composers of 20th and early 21st centuries. However, today one would not want to lose the deep understanding of Sutartinės, to move far away from her nature. Perhaps it is not for nothing that the Japanese rebuild their Shinto temples every 20 years. It is not only part of the transmission of the beliefs in death and regeneration, but also a way to pass down the secret of temple construction to future generations. Thank you very much, and sorry my English.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. Now it's time for questions and comments.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. And I would be interested, you showed in the first slides Sutartinės examples.
Yes.
And some few graphics. I'm interested how it is constructed. There is some relation to the notation of?
Yes, it's very, very simple notation.
Thank you.
I brought his principle from composer Dainius Palionis, who tried notated some songs and sutartinės in his way. And here one, his a big quadrat, kaip angliškai. Quadrat, square. A bigger square means one ketvirtinė. Yes, and smaller. His note is here, and two smaller here. And very simple way of notation. Yes.
So it's not notated kind of tone and semitone. It's notated.
No. Just rhythm.
Just a rhythm.
Just
okay.
rhythm. Just rhythm structure. Mm-hmm.
I also would like to ask, thank you very much really for presentation, it's very interesting. And do you have examples of sutartinė used by not Lithuanian composers or not Lithuanian music groups?
Composers?
Abroad, somewhere abroad. Mm-hmm. Are used sutartinės by pop, electronic, academic music?
Yes, thank you for your question. And I have a lot of examples, but I have less time for presentation. For example, here is composition with my group by composer and musician Abraham Brody from America. It's like virtualized presentation of sutartinės. It's live performance at Barbican Center of London. Of course, it's more authentical singing with some violin music. We can remember composition of Dalius Naujakaitis naujas sutartinės ant stogo, like jazz composition, but he's Lithuanian from America. Exactly now I don't remember from another composers from abroad.
Okay, thank you. I think we have to move on. Thank you very much once again. And our next presenter, Eglė Gelažiūtė Pranevičienė from the Institute of Lithuanian Literature and Folklore. Welcome.
Hello, dear all. I am very pleased to come back here. And I have so many thoughts after Daiva's presentation and also many questions. They are kind of repetitive in my own research. So first of all, I would like to present my field of interest. I usually work, okay, I can come closer if needed. Yeah, okay. I usually work with the ways of how traditional local culture, especially Lithuanian culture, appears in today's society, in today's music and art in general. So I'm very much interested in the ways of this culture being experienced and the places where it could be found. So as I always love to challenge myself with various conferences and to take my theme and just to play with it with different angles. And today, when having in mind this ethno in contempo concept, which gives me again many questions of traditional culture and folklore concept itself, I will be talking about a kind of ontological lack as a reason of using exactly traditional culture in today's music. Okay, so first of all about the field. If we are talking about the compositions of various genres of exactly Lithuanian music that in one or another way uses traditional Lithuanian culture, so it might appear in absolutely various ways. It could be, well, kind of a direct way. When a whole or slightly modified folk song is used, it is sung by contemporary singers, or an archival record could be used. Musical motive could be used as an instrumental layer. It could be various folklore texts, even Sanskrit, not only Lithuanian. It could be original lyrics, poetry, with some references to certain ethnic culture, to Lithuanian, Baltic, again, Sanskrit, etc. It could be practices of traditional performances and even the way of living or a worldview. Well, we already saw how many possibilities of and forms could of this the same Lithuanian culture could be, even when we are talking about one genre of folklore, about Sutartinės that Daiva talked about. So we saw that there are many ways that differs according to the, well, I should say, due to the experiences of the artists and the experiences that they use to create a unique outcome. Is it direct purpose or not? The first question that I would like to put here in the air, maybe, it would be, as a folklorist, I would ask, of course, what is ethno today? What is ethnic culture today? It is always the main question. And when I came to my first year of PhD studies, I was quite sure what folklore is. Now I am not, and this is my hopefully last year of my PhD studies, if everything goes well. So now the other question is, where could this folklore or this ethnic culture be found today? Speaking about not only about music creation, but also, and not only about art, but also about our living world, about our environment, about our homes, and well, we will see later that it is very much connected to various things, our experiences, our homes, and our memories. So the question that I found now to be very relative, very important to me, is what do we lack in the age of abundance? And this question appeared when I researched various genres of this so-called post-folklore in Lithuania. So these genres vary from, academic music styles to various experimental and popular music, such as, well, experimental music such as Vilkduje, Vėlių namai, Girių Dvasios, which is more dub techno, etc. So first of all, when we are talking about ontological lack, so we have in mind something that we lack or miss, and that could not be manifested in any tangible or materialistic form. When I talk to the artists that work with traditional music in various ways, very often it becomes clear that they seek for something more, and I will try to show you what are the things they are looking for. Sometimes it is very clear, and sometimes you just can find the answer between the lines. And Saulis Matulevičius says that from an anthropological perspective, the response to ontological lack is reciprocity and exchange. And such interaction also takes place with the spiritual world. When one uses traditional culture, he gets something from it too. Today, traditional culture, if we try to summarize it or somehow make a scheme of it, it can be used as a source, it is as a mode of being, and what is very, well, it becomes kind of clear for me that it is a fundamental, yet not obvious state of consciousness. And these things can be articulated, can be reflected and understood by the creators and by the music composers, if we talk about exactly music composition, even though it is common in other arts too. But also the other thing that is very important is this spontaneity and naturality, and something that is perceived instinctively and intuitively. So this is always an interaction between two modes of understanding. It is an interaction between conscious, direct way of reflecting your music and giving, asking yourself, what is my goal, what am I doing with this music? And the question could be, as a state-changing mode, there is a very good insight by a narratologist, Lithuanian narratologist, Jurga Jonutytė, that you can see here. She emphasized that the speaking person and the person that is, usually living in their daily life are not exactly the same from the perspective of self-experience and self-awareness. And this self-awareness gives us a possibility to rethink and to understand the main questions and the main ways of how do we use this, our traditional local culture. But the other thing that, again, interacts with it and is very important is emphasized by my scholar supervisor, Vyčinienė. It is spontaneity or naturality. In Lithuanian, it's more clear, it's savaimingumas. In this book, she researches these kind of natural living songs, natural songs that lives in society. Sometimes they are not visible, but they function very well. And she says that they are opposite to the controlled, purposefully created songs written in scores on the stage as a product of professional creative work. It is the mode. It is priešingas. Opposite, sorry. Yeah. They are opposite to the mode that of something being shaped by conscious, institutionally sanctioned, seeking to preserve cultural heritage, to revive it, restore it, adapt it, etc. So many of them nowadays creations that are multiple now, and I think this abundance of genres, of forms and artists now kind of shows that it becomes a natural part of today's culture. And it starts to become. It becomes hard to define it as something, like contemporized folklore or modernized folklore, it is a part of folklore now, or part of today's culture, sorry. So when we are talking about these clear or reflected outcomes and clear messages that could be clear goals that could be understood by researching not only the music but the interviews with the authors, we have these kind of things, these kind of goals that are clear. So various artists say that they want to revive the tradition as it would be dead, well, to make traditional Lithuanian culture more attractive to young people, to find a closer spiritual tradition, to keep memory alive. This is very much connected to your own environment and your own memory. So, for example, the same Bronius Kutavičius speaks about the things that he has in his home and how he passes them, and he starts to think, he starts to connect them with some kind of traditional, some subconscious levels, etc. To keep traditional alive if it wasn't dead, to create attractive musical production, this is also a commercial purpose, and it is absolutely normal and not, how to say, it is not something, negative. And there are many other ways. But I am very much interested in the things that might not appear or not be reflected very clearly. And this can be found in various interviews, again, with artists. And I just love to research. You know, we have so many unofficial bases of interviews now. We have such radio programs as by Domantas Razauskas, for example, Pakartot. We have many interviews by these artists that works with exactly traditional culture in their contemporary compositions. We have pieces by Ugnius Logė. There is still Dangus Net, I think, where he keeps many interviews, etc. Radikaliai LT, Ore LT, and many others. Not so many, but a few others too. So we have plenty interviews that we can work with. So Jausmė, that is pretty popular today. She uses kanklės as her main instrument, but she sings in a contemporary manner and sings about contemporary things. However, she says that when she sits down to play the kanklės, she feels as if she's a medium between, God bless you, the other and incomprehensible in this world, yeah. Sometimes, she says, she just cries out the pain and the difficulty. So here we see two things. We see the connection between the experience of this world or this environment and some transcendent goal. And the other thing is the way of changing your inner state, your inner mode. So you cry out the pain and the difficulty. Saulius Spindi, Saulius Labanauskas, his real name, when he found the records of Petras Zalanskas, it was a very kind of a shocking experience for him. He says, afterwards, he's reflecting now, this, when he sings, it seems as if he is transmitting something more. What is something more when we think? Why do we lack something more when we have kind of everything today, in this Western world? So we see that something more for Saulius and for many of us, I think, is he says it is as if a ritual is taking place with him. He's creating a connection with something beyond, somewhere from the other side. And it is very important for contemporary people, because I think we very much lack the possibility to identify or find ways with these spiritual traditions and communities. Another interesting thing. Šarūnas Šimkus wrote about Vilkduje. Vilkduje is an post-industrial, industrial, darker approach to this traditional culture that suggests us where this culture could be found. I think other artists, Darius Gerulaitis from first Amber folk band in Lithuania, Veidas, talked about some kind of common Lithuanian conscious that could it is undefined. It's some kind of matrix again that couldn't be defined, but it is there, and when you reach it, you understand that it is Lithuanian, that it is yours, that you belong to it. How many minutes do I have? Oh, okay, thank you. So Šarūnas Šimkus emphasizes again about Vilkduje that it is kind of an open manifestation of the nature with devils, spirits, animals that can transform into psychopomps and guide souls to the heights of transcendent reality, helping to resolve spiritual quests. And it has been suppressed for centuries in the collective Lithuanian worldview. It is an intuition shared by others, especially poets from the second half of the 20th century and performance of the darker Lithuanian music towards the end of the century. So we really have kind of many artists now, both professional composers and various other music artists that are questioning this side of traditional culture as something that is there but cannot be finally defined. And where now I have to ask this question, or just let it flow in the air again, about this possibility to work with your, to identify with your own culture. And when Darius asked about this, Darius Kučinskas, about this possibility of foreign artists to work with Sutartinės, for example, and if I come back to the question of Daiva, Račiūnaitė, Vyčinienė, of this conveying the mentality of Lithuanian tradition. So the question is, can a foreign person understand or identify with this Lithuanian culture? Can these symbols, experiences be not only transmitted but also experienced by him? Well, in this way that we would like to. And the other question, does this, very loud, do these creators of such music, do they have to convey this mentality? Is it an obligation, or maybe not? Maybe it could be just a game. So I will leave these questions open. Okay, after these interviews that you saw, these are just a few, there are many, many more. We see that these music creations, or any traditional Lithuanian cultural practices, and when I say Lithuanian, it could be applied to many other cultures. It appears as the practice and articulation of communality and connection with others. When I say others, I include ancestors too. It is a way to change or tune your inner states, adjust your mode of being. It is a seek of other experiences. And here we also can think about the festivals as non-places. There's a concept of Tomlinson that says that today we have some kind of non-places that is not, it is kind of same everywhere. He gives an example of airports, but we can easily give the example of various trance music festivals that take place in nature and are very similar worldwide. Very important thing is that this work with your traditional culture sources and the seek of your own culture, your relation to your own culture, is also a way of exploring your living world and your environment, and at the same time connecting with the place. It is practice of attention to your place. I'm learning to do that myself. I just sit at my home and I'm looking to the things that are around, and okay, this thing is, for example, is my grandmother's, and this reminds me about her, etc. I just remember her songs, her stories, etc. And also I just ask you, I beg you to just write your memories about everything, about place, to walk through the spaces with your memories. And the question, kind of the main question now, why tradition-inspired music, why does not, can I say that other types of music cannot do this, cannot give this kind of sensation, cannot fulfill this ontological or existential lack? So partially it can be done by any styles of music, for example, and any musical practices. But what does this traditional music or tradition-inspired music gives? So I will give the quotes, and I think these could be the answers, or some of the answers. So Gediminas Žilys from Atelier says that the external world may have changed drastically, but the cycle of the year always remains the same. There is an opportunity to experience that time in the light of a June night on the dew on a clover. Laurita Peleniūtė, that organizes Sutartinės ratai. Circles, yeah, thank you. Says that having lived abroad and experienced the longing for this homeland, one returns like someone thirsty for songs, traditions, nature, and she's talking about everything that is rooted in everyday life. So everyday life is important. It's not only some kind of spiritual higher traditions. These experiences can be perceived through the everyday life. The songs created by the community that have reached us from the everyday lives of people from the past strengthen the connection with previous generations, and it makes it clearer who you are, where your roots are, and singing these songs becomes a purposeful action, helping to cope with difficult states, again, to change your state. This is a research by my colleague Giedrė Ragotienė. She is, I think, in her second year of PhD, and she's working with the experiences of pregnant women, which are singing those folk songs. And Bučinskaitė with Jurijus Dobrakova says that in the context of universal political and economic chaos, there is an increasing longing for primordial communality, for spiritual experiences that bring us closer, again, to the environment, and in general for a sense of meaning, wonder, and unity. So, kind of conclusions, traditional folklore-based practices, it is a way to change the emotional state or feelings. Familiar songs allow to identify with and align with, to feel rooted, grounded, something more, something from beyond, and appear as a transcendent possibility that we lack, even though very often we do not articulate it, we do not understand it, we do not say it in words. Okay, the question that I want to ask also is, does contemporary person lack anything different than our ancestors? I'm not sure. And my supervisor again says that the need to give meaning and symbolize the surrounding world, to search for a higher purpose in everyday life has not disappeared anywhere. And this is, I thought these might be the best conclusions. So Laurita Peleniūtė organizes these circles of Sutartinės and of singing in general. That is called promočių giesmės, and these are the ways that this traditional culture appear in contemporary life. So this is, the connection with ancestors, with nature, with other generations, and with animals. Well, of course, everything's connected to nature. So that would be all, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
No?
No?
Thank you very much. It was very fascinating and deep paper, and I'd like to ask about this term of ontological lag. What is the origin of this term? Is it from phenomenology or some different branch of philosophy? I'm interested in this term.
Thank you very much. Yes, so this term of ontological lag is sometimes even more used in while researching the scarcity or economical lag. So it is very much connected. Sometimes it's used in phenomenology. And in Lithuania we have one kind of big research that I think is even called Stoka. I think it's Stoka. It was released in 2016, and there are various approaches there. So it is not a very common term, but I think it expresses the best this question.
So this is your idea to use it in the field of ethnomusicology, or is it common in your psychological environment to use this term?
Yeah, in this context of the researchers in ethnomusicology, I kind of didn't find anything using this term. So I love to attract the concepts of other disciplines, because it reveals some many things. Yeah.
Yes, it's very revealing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you once again, and I think we have to move on.
Okay, thank you.
The third presenter today is Daniele Buccio. He will present a paper titled On the Destiny of Mikalojus Konstantinas Čiurlionis and Juozas Pakalnis Lithuanian Pastoral Symphonies. Welcome.
Labadiana, good morning. I sincerely thank the organizers and Dr. Andrius Maslekovas for kind support and for having accepted within the program the proposition of this paper dedicated to the Lithuanian pastoral symphonies composed by Čiurlionis in 1910 and by Juozas Pakalnis between 1947 and 1948. In the moment of the submission, I hoped that this subject could meet the general theme of the conference through an historical perspective, as the presence of folk elements in cultivated art or art music is belonging to every stage of the history of music, and involves obviously stylistic and compositional choices and features. Historical investigation of the traditional compositional style and of the use of traditional techniques in the compositional practice of their time could shed light on their significance also for the composers of our time, who are willing to engage in analogous compositional paths. It can also clarify the motives of such a specific attitude in the musical practice of composition of today. The consideration of the term contempo allowed this view. The folk music is often regarded to be like made of timeless principles of whose historical development is hard to track back, while at the same time the cultivated classical music becomes aware of itself and its own temporal development through observation of technical changes and evolving of features. The pastoral genre appeared to be quite emblematic of the relationship between art and folk music, and it, as very well known, its roots in Renaissance music, and it also progressively followed the development of the relationship between vocal and instrumental music. At first, pastoral music could be considered to be inspired by the life of shepherds and filled within the imitation of naturalistic and realistic elements, or in mythological acceptation of the term, the Arcadian word, up to the expression of feeling rather than painting. The first stage of pastoral music is sort of part of a wider trend of program music. I would like just to mention this a pastoral symphony by Justin Heinrich Knecht in 1784. He composed a symphony in 5 movements, Le Portrait Musical de la Nature, in which he composed in many captions. He evoked the joy of the sun, the approaching storm, the hurricane, and the return of calm, and the nature's thanksgiving. And from this, Beethoven probably derived his intention for his 6th symphony in F major, composed in 1806 and 1807 and presented under Wien Theater in December of 1808. The list of pastoral symphonies and composition of the genre would be no particular use at the moment. From the very beginning, there is a need to bring aspects of folk singing into classical instrumental music up to symphonic music. I would just like to recall the pastoral symphony by Leopold Mozart in 1755. In the history of Lithuanian music, several composers have devoted themselves to the pastoral genre, have crossed the 20th century with elements which could be referred to also to literary or to folk music. In the chamber music, I would like just to mention a few piano pieces, such as Jonas Tamulioni's Pastoraline Suita from 1986, Vytautas Montvilla's Pastoral Preludes from 1973, Kęstutis Bilieukas Pastoral for Piano, and the 7th of Leonas Povilaitis 9 Etudes Pictures. Among the soul and chamber composition, or it's possible also to include pastorals by Constantia Brunsnaite in 1968, and works by Antanas Rekašius, by Algirdas Brūžas, and by Vytautas Juozapaitis. As regards the properly orchestral setting, I would like to mention the first of the 3 aspects, Opus 17 by Vytautas Baranauskas from his triptych recorded in 1970 and published in 1972, and orchestral pastoral by Rizzarda Cabellis, written in 1982 under the supervision of Julius Juceliunas at the Conservatory of Leipzig. But the only two compositions that bear the title of Lithuanian Pastoral Symphony in the history of Lithuanian symphonic music were conceived by Čiurlionis, who had in mind this kind of work already at the end of the first decade of the 20th century, and by Juozas Pakalnis about 30 years later. The destiny of these two symphonies is that both of them are incompleted, and both of them represented the last, almost the last work of the respective authors. They were both composed in the first half of the century, and their unfinished fate leaves open new possible solutions for completion or for understanding the reasons why composers of the following decades did not follow up a programmatic use of folk elements in pastoral key in their own way. Or just to focus on if it's just a case of denomination and my presentation will be rather brief, as I decided not to project the images from the manuscripts of both work, both composition, as I don't own the authorization for their diffusion from the Čiurlionis Museum in Kaunas and from the Lithuanian National Theatre, Music and Cinema Museum, where the sources are kept. In case of interest, I can privately, very thoroughly go into technical details of both scores of both composition. As regards Čiurlionis' Pastoral Symphony, in the two drafted movements of his unfinished work, the Lithuanian Pastoral, among the pages contained at the very end of the Čiurlionis manuscript 16, Čiurlionis developed some musical ideas already collected in 1907 in the concluding section of the Stworzenie Świata, within a symphonic guise that sees in the Beethovenian reference of the Sixth Symphony an indispensable model. The final section of the Stworzenie Świata seems to represent a sort of starting point for the attitude Čiurlionis pursued in this work. Their reconstruction offers points of view of fundamental importance for the understanding of the musical thought of the author of the last years of his life. These pages are most likely among the last ones that the author left us. For a time, these pages were considered as sketches of the composer's period of illness, which do not contain many new musical ideas, and they would be only the grim and shocking traces of a spiritual struggle left by trembling hand of the patient. But 9 years ago, I had the opportunity to reconsider this work and to come closer, just not to the work in themselves, but to some of compositional principles that they showed, and maybe it can be remarked a very strong orchestral ambition of that in that moment of Čiurlionis' output became evident, and I described some aspects of those pages in other presentations, so I am not going to propose here them again today. Observations are collected in a small article published in 2016 in the book Mikalojus, Konstantinas, Čiurlionis, Vilniuje. I can just confirm most of them, especially the most conscious reference to Beethoven in the structure of the work, in harmonic and melodic details, and possible cues, for example, from Schumann's Humoresque at the very beginning. I might just add a few considerations allowed by the distance from that moment onwards, as the hypothesis that the work is perhaps dedicated to Jonas Basanavičius, among the first collectors of folk songs, and his archive of folk song is partly available also online, and is a fascinating source related to Čiurlionis' relationship to folk songs quite in the same years. In the heading of the symphony, just the initial E-B appears as a dedication, and not without surprise, the title of the Lithuanian symphony is reported by an expression in Polish. And so translations into Lithuanian of poetical texts or headings can sometimes distance themselves from the author's intention and maybe offer to the public a different view other than the one that the author impressed in his work. And this also recently happened on the occasion of my reconstruction of Čiurlionis' chamber song Zadumali Daniele from 1904 on poetical text by Stefania Podolska-Olerova. A very relevant aspect evoked by Čiurlionis' work appears to be the relationship with the program music, and subsequently the relationship with the Lisztian aesthetical tradition, to which his first teachers belonged, and the possibility of the music to transcend the sound itself and to represent and to express, to go beyond its own appearance. As a matter of fact, Čiurlionis' absorption of Lithuanian traditional stylistic traits starting from the second half of the first decade of the century ended up pervading his same avant-garde compositional research, merging with it so that some folk elements and technical research are impossible to separate. Čiurlionis came in his latest year to an individual musical thought imbued with principle of Lithuanian folk art, and he was among the initiators of this particular direction in the history of music. This attitude appears as original and not reducible to any other model of his previous years. So for example, in the German or in the Polish context where he was acquainted, nothing similar happened to that extent. And it also supports Čiurlionis' research on escaping tonal relationships, which he felt in the realm of symmetric construction of group of sounds and transpositional plans. This, of course, mostly reflects in his piano works, but also in the orchestral writing, he still grounds a tonal clarity, which evolves then in the unexpected technical solution. The first movement of the symphony bears the date of the 2nd of February 1910, and it's fully sketched. It contains even a quotation from Chopin's Prelude in B minor, Opus 28, number 6, at the cello as a solo from the cello. The second movement is a scene from the forest scene, Bourges, Tempest is recalling directly Beethoven's fourth movement from his sixth symphony, and it's left incompleted in its hand. Čiurlionis also elaborated a motive drawn from Beethoven's Tempest Sonata, a storm sonata, and in my opinion, within this movement, Čiurlionis notated a 12-pitch chord made up by superposing 3 diminished sevenths. It is also possible to retrieve also the melody Seriau Zirgeli, Seriau Biriai, that Jadwiga Čiurlionytė reported as a recollection to Šimkus, which was not recognized in any other original source by Čiurlionis. The whole symphony features the succession and the counterpoint of several traditional melodies subject to orchestration and in the second movement to polytonal doubling procedures of particular interest. Čiurlionis had also separately annotated these melodies in some of his piano version. And I am currently carrying on a study dedicated to the possible sources of that years for Čiurlionis for these melodies, comparing them with later versions and later variants collected by other authors in the following decades. And as mentioned before, Juozas Pakalnis composition is first symphony composed between 47 and January 48, also remained in an unfinished state. It is very likely that Pakalnis, also by virtue of his activity as a conductor, was aware of Čiurlionis' previous work, and that he drew inspiration from it. As in Kaunas, he had very likely the opportunity to browse through Čiurlionis' pages of at the time, between the 30s and the 40s. Pakalnis was born in Veselkiškės in the Pakruoja district. He was a renowned virtuoso flutist. Then he became active as a conductor, as a pedagogue. He graduated in the Leipzig Conservatory, where he studied in the late 30s composition in the class of Johann Nepomuk David, an Austrian composer. Of course, he followed Grodis classes in Lithuania, and in conducting the class of Hermann Paul Abendroth. Since 1941, he was conductor at the Kaunas Musical Theatre, and in those initial years of the 40s, he conceived an important ballet premiered in 43, The Bride, with a folk setting, and he consistently harmonized Lithuanian folk song. In his activity of conductor, he publicly presented them regularly. In one program, I was able to find a performance in Kaunas under his conduction of Čiurlionis Bekit Bareliai in the instrumentation of Uspolevičius. It is reported that after the end of the war, Pakalnis was severely criticized by the Union of Soviet Lithuanian composers during the 40s, and suddenly he passed away in 48 while he was working to the pastoral symphony. I would like to mention just 3 main musicological works dedicated to him. The first by Juozas Gaudrimas in the 31st issue of Literatura Irmenas in 1958, dedicated to the 40th 45th birthday of the composer, which he could not celebrate. Then the recollection by Vytautas Krukauskas in 1971, and the monograph by Vaclavas Huot-Pusis appeared in the following year, 1972. There are a full consideration of his output and the position of the pastoral symphony in relation to his compositional research can be made. Pakalnis symphony in C major is a tonal work, is a freely tonal, but nevertheless is rooted in the late romantic strategies of formal strategies, and survives in a piano sketch up to the third movement, which is a scherzo, containing hints of the orchestration within. A full handwritten orchestration on pencil of the first movement, which is an allegretto pastorale, preceded by an introduction, andante, dated 10th December 47 to 1st of January 48, just 4 weeks before his passing away. And a third source is a version of an unknown copyist made with ink. The second movement is a one-page part of the symphony, which opens with the melody of the introduction of the first movement in a determination of cyclicity. And as in Čiurlionis symphony, in Pakalnis symphony, it is possible to observe the conspicuous presence of melodies consciously taken from the folk repertoire, the use of quotation and contrapuntal elaboration as a willing sign of stylistic and formal continuity between the two works. I would like to propose to reconsider the realization and the actual performance of both work of particular significance for the history of Lithuanian music and of the history of the relationship between these two realms and these two works understandably were on the sidelines due to their incompleteness. And in this regard, I would like to announce my own attempt of orchestration of the Čiurlionis Pastoral Symphony, on which I had the opportunity to work for some years, and so I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Yeah.
Thank you, Daniele. It is really very interesting that you find very original theme to speak and to compare these two compositions. It's very new for us too. And the question is about incompleteness and finished conception. So, do you think the Čiurlionis didn't finish his symphony in two parts? Is it enough, 2 parts or not?
Yes, it's a very personal consideration of the state of the source, but the second movement is left with a single voice, which gives suggestion that the work can can be followed by a third and final part, as in the Beethoven model after the storm. He sketched all the stormy part with full chromaticism, and then the remaining pages are just the following, joining the state of peaceful state. So everything could suggest that he would have developed a third peaceful part. But this is a personal impression on the sources.
Other questions?
I'm wondering, do you know when will your orchestration be performed?
Oh, I think the first movement is already in half orchestrated by Čiurlionis. He left us full pages of full score. In some other places are just 2 lines. It's continuously moving. It's a condensed score in some places. As far as I know, no realization are not in the immediate future.
Thank you.
So concerning your own attempt to orchestrate Čiurlionis, was it your own idea to do that? Are you interested in this music, or is it some cooperation with Lithuania or some institutions?
It was just born from the knowledge of relationship with the orchestra with Čiurlionis in the symphonic poems, and his attempt to develop his own orchestration. Also, we know among some attempts, it was also the attempts to orchestrate the D flat major prelude. He left us also a fragment of his own orchestration in D major of this prelude. So I was trying to follow the way Čiurlionis could orchestrate in following the source and the indications that he left. So I was interested in prolonging just, of course it's a creative aspect, no more musicological, but it's grounded in the faithfulness on his own attitude toward the orchestra. Yeah.
Is it only the orchestration, or are you attempting to continue to somehow complete since it's incomplete, this composition, right?
Yeah, you know, the border becomes very unclear especially when the counterpuntal procedure are implied, or doublings or techniques. So the creation of new lines and mere or instrumentation is a border that in order to complete you are obliged to surpass. But I am conscious and careful. I never wanted to overpass this the will of the author that we can observe in the scores. And of course, in case of an orchestrationist, will be a creative work, no more purely musicological.
Okay, so we look forward for the result. Very interesting. Any other questions? Okay, so I think we have the coffee break, and since we took a bit longer than it's planned, so the second half will start at 20 minutes past 12. So we have half an hour for the coffee break. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
colleagues. We can continue with the presentations this morning. Well, this afternoon, actually, it's past 12, so good afternoon, we can say. And it is a great pleasure to present Dr. Aistė Vaitkevičiūtė, representing Lithuanian Academy of Music and Theatre. And she will present the paper named Resonances of Bells in Vocal Ethno-practices, and her composition, I Ring This Bell. So please welcome Aistė.
Hello everyone. It's a pleasure to start the second session of this wonderful conference. So I will start. So my field of exploration lies between the sound of a bell, or the sound objects which are close to the bell family, and their representations in human vocal practices. I divide those practices into two main fields that are linguistic area and musical folklore. Both these areas are reflected in my composition, I Ring This Bell, which I will discuss later thoroughly in this presentation. To begin to draw a parallel between the sound of a bell and its reflection in vocal area, I would like to demonstrate the following two spectral representations. Firstly, we see a spectral representation of one of the bells that I've been using in my piece. So here a short excursion should probably be done because the piece was a part of a project called Old Things Resonate New, and the idea of the project was to revival some old things, objects into new life somehow, to revive them. So my idea was to use some old objects as bowls and flower pots, etc., as bells. I remade them as bells. And one of such remade bells was gas cylinder, big gas cylinder. I will put the picture later. So this is a spectral representation particular of this gas cylinder bell. If we look at the spectromorphological profile of the sound, several characteristics are certainly manifest. We can notice an explosive, sharp, written partials attack, and the evolution of the sound as the various partials fade or come out with the lowering of the spectral components in general. And here is further representation. And this is actually a representation of my voice recorded while pronouncing the word gong. And I just remembered that I forgot to play the sound of a gas cylinder bell, which I have. The low frequencies partials last actually for a very long time, even a minute. And the second representation is how I pronounce the word gong. Just as simple as that. Okay. So here a short remark should also probably be told. because bell and gong, of course, are not one and the same instrument, actually. However, we probably can attribute them to the same or close family of sound objects or instruments. And it is particularly evident if we explore the words meaning bell in different languages, and they are quite often etymologically related to the word gong. And I will return to this a little bit later. So what are the parallels between these two spectral representations? How can we tell that it is imitation of bell sound? And I think that even without a deep analysis, we can trace similarities between these two spectral profiles. First of all, the similarity of attack phase, which in both cases is noisy, sharp, and rich in partials material. And also the continuation phase is quite similar because even when I pronounce the word gong, because of the changing of different vowels and consonants, the spectral profile also changes. However, to support it with more scholarly data, I will refer to the research of Rytis Ambrazevičius from 2010. After making experiment with multilingual respondents as well as analyzing literary sources, several characteristic features have been distinguished by Ambrazevičius. He states that in mostly cases, imitations of bell sound starts with voiced explosive consonants, such as b, d, g, and the continuation is either vowel diphthongs, such as au, ye, or ui, but the most often case is au, and it can also continue in vowel consonant diphthongs, such as im or an. The presence of nasal consonants such as m, n is explained by him as follows. Nasals are characterized by relatively intense bands of low frequencies, and this lowering is also present in the course of a bell stroke. And we could see this tendency in our previous representations. I can show once more that the partials, the lower partials, continue for a longer time. This relation between actual sound of bell and its vocal representation was a point of departure for my composition I Ring This Bell, which I've been working since 2022. It was performed last October, just recently, during the music festival Music Autumn in Vilnius. You can see also the performers in a slide. And the general idea of a composition was to create a kind of bell island. Such image comes from the Asian cultures, such as Indian, Thai, where wind chimes and bells are often being installed in some casual public environments or shrines where people pass through, and those islands create a very specific soundscape of that particular place, which is mostly dependent on weather conditions. So there may occur only soft ripples of wind chimes under the conditions of soft breeze, for example, but when the winds are strong, so the place becomes very resonant and saturated in sound. So yeah, here you can see some of the bells which were remade from different objects, bowls, etc., etc. They are not all here in this picture, but some of them. And gas cylinder at the center. So, at the very beginning of the creative process, I have had quite a long research period looking for the most appropriate text for this idea. And my intention was to invoke such words that would be close in their spectromorphological profile to the sound of bell, but not too much stereotypical expressions, such as we commonly use din, don, bim, bam. I just wanted to avoid them because of their stereotypical nature. So the text that I started off with was the Hindu mantra, originally in Sanskrit. And this mantra is performed when a devotee is entering into a shrine and rings the bell at the entrance. And the text in English, translated to English, would be, I ring this bell, indicating the invocation of divinity, so that virtuous and noble forces enter, and the demonic and evil forces from within and without depart. So the very initial phrase, I ring this bell, has become a starting point for my further research and search for text material. So my next procedure was translating this phrase and its separate words into different languages. And especially I was focusing on the words bell, ring, but also included gong, chime, and similar. And rather quickly I have realized that these words have very much in common across different languages. For example, as I have already mentioned about the gong, there is quite a number of words which we can relate to the word gong. And I'm not sure, because I have not found enough sources to confirm this or not. With some words, it is actually clear that they are connected. I think gong and kong have the same origin, but I have not found, for example, Sanskrit ganta. The origin is the same or not? I'm not sure yet. And another group, very rich group, here is not all the variants, because there are a lot of words of similar origin, are from Proto-Slavic word zvon. So many examples related to this word. They are transliterated here, but even Lithuanian žvangutis, I guess it's the same origin. And just one more mark about zvon. The etymological origin is very complicatedly explained, and there are a lot of versions of this origin of this word. But one of the versions, maybe not the main, but there is mentioned such a version that it is from the word zveno, meaning link in a chain, and can be connected with the noise that chains make as they are dragged. So not all, as I said, I'm not sure about the origin of all the words, But for me, choosing the text, the most important thing was to find those words which would be similar in their profile of imitating bell sound. And for example, the word, Greek word kodoni, sorry if there are Greeks among us, and you can correct me if I pronounce good or not. So kodoni, the origin is also not clear, at least according to the Oxford Dictionary, but the sound, I like the sound very much, and it sounds like imitating bell, kodoni. So this collection of multilingual words formed the textual tapestry of my composition. The idea for organizing the form was extracted from the already discussed spectromorphological profile of a bell. And as we see, you can divide it into three phases of the sound: attack, continuation, and fading out or dispersion phase. And these phases was like exploratory material for my textures. And the overall profile served as a prototype for the whole of the composition. First of all, let's start from the attack phase, which is noisy, sharp. Although it is the shortest phase of a sound, I decomposed it into even smaller elements. Metaphorically, I decompose it into the smallest possible particles which gather in random constellations in return. This process is initiated in vocal parts. I choose several words for decomposing, but I will demonstrate only one of them, the one I mentioned already, kodoni. So you can see the process how I decompose this word. First of all to syllables, then only to the consonants, k, din, and then even the consonants were decomposed to even smaller particles. So I have several phases of the consonant k. The one is only pronounced with the throat, I can say, without breath. It would sound something like k, k, something like that. Then merely breathy k, sorry, k, with a breath, only with a breath. Then more breath, k. And then I go further, but if we stay to the consonants, so I should say k. So these several phases for one consonant. And the same was done with don, de, te, t, and so on. The beginning of composition is developing in this way, from the less breathy sounds to more breathy, and then to the voiced sound, until it reaches the stage where the full words are being pronounced, kodoni and ganta, rakan, and so on. So I think we can listen for a short example. Here is an excerpt from a score, but the recording is from the concert. It's quiet music, soft music, but I hope you will hear. So the effect is quite environmental, I guess, but it corresponds to that idea which I told, that I wanted to create like Bell Island, which you enter without a purpose to to listen deeply from the beginning to the end. But of course it is a composition and it has its course of development, but it's quite slow. Now we move to the next section, which is based on a continuation phase of a bell. The process that I try to metaphorically invoke and apply to both vocal and instrumental parts is the unfolding of partials during this phase. And as we find the explanation in Grove Dictionary, when a bell is struck, it gives off a complex sound containing a considerable number of partials that may or may not be concordant relationship, rather than a fundamental pitch with a series of concordant harmonics above it. Although we know from the history that the efforts were given to tune bells that they would be more tonal, more clear in pitch, but for me the sound with rich inharmonic content is much more interesting. And as Downes described it, inharmonicity factor creates a curiously thrilling and disturbing effect. As a model for pitch content, I used a spectrum from this gas cylinder bell. So I have several representations of it. But despite the spectral material, I was also keen to find more vocal specific approach instead of formally transcribing pitches of the partials to vocal parts, which would also be quite difficult for performers to sing such microtonal tones. So finally, I came up with the idea of Schwebungsdiaphonie or beat diaphony, the term which refers to two-part musical, usually vocal styles with a lot of dissonant beating intervals, such as seconds. There are the musical cultures are found in different locations all over the world, but most commonly they are in Balkans, Indonesia, and we also have our Lithuanian type of Schwebungsdiaphonie, which is Sutartinės, of course. As many researchers of this specific phenomenon observes, the clash between two voices in a second interval is compared to the sound of a bell. And as Vyčinienė tells in her paper, good performance had to create the bell-like sound. And also it is confirmed by many other researchers. Rytis Pranevičius has explored that the interval structures of Sutartinės, he made a conclusion that the interval, which is mostly rough and is characteristic to Schwebungsdiaphonie, is slightly narrower than tempered major second, with quite wide range of variations. With this interval, slightly narrower than second, you can reach the effect of maximum roughness. And coming back to the quality of bells, according to Pranevičius, the comparison maybe between bells and Schwebungsdiaphonie may be based on similar psychoacoustic qualities, i.e., close partials, beats, attacks, and frequency range. So my intention was somehow to reflect and combine these two different sources, the spectral components of the sound of a bell, as well as the tradition of Schwebungsdiaphonie. So after a deep analysis and reflection of the spectral content of this bell, I attributed different functions to separate parts of this spectral content. So first of all, I chose this central second, which served as a core function for my musical texture. It is between C slightly higher than natural. Sorry, H, I see. Yeah. Or B natural, yeah. B slightly higher than B natural. And C sharp slightly lower than C sharp. And here we get this interval slightly narrower than major second. And then, yeah, there are some repetitions in different octaves of the same notes. And the other function I called peripheries. So here is my core, and then I extend my material to peripheries. These are points of that textural material. And the remaining partials, I call them like enharmonic complements. And the function of them is to make the sound as enharmonic as possible during the development of composition. While adapting this framework to the vocal part, several moments should also be pointed out. As I said before, it would be rather tricky to put the pitches exactly as they are in a scheme to vocal part. So how I try to execute those clashes of sounds that would be not so tempered. So I use macrotonal alterations and glissandos. And during those glissandos, we can get these intervals which are different in their sound qualities and roughness. And this procedure is not alien to Schwebungsdiaphonie, because in Sutartinės, the singer sometimes also reaches the desirable intervals by glissando. And glissando are also extensively used in Balkan songs, for example. So here we see an excerpt from a score, and you can see the differently marked notes, and here those different functions are signified. So I don't know if you see the difference, but the darker blue is for the core function notes, the brighter blue is for peripheries, and the gray are for those enharmonic content. And I would like to add some little remarks about the text which I used. I borrowed some melodic elements from Lithuanian song Oi Ūžė Jūžė. there is no direct quotations, but there are some elements, melodical directions and similar. And especially I liked the text. Ūžė, jūžė, which when you pronounce, you get those long oo, which can be the prolongation of the sound of a bell also. And the zh provides with the noisy content. Yeah. And one more excerpt from the score. Here you see the instrumental parts, and as you see, most of the instrumental parts are performing the enharmonic content, enharmonic function. So the idea was to move from singers which are step by step overwhelmed by the instruments with resonant, vibrant, enharmonic sound. So maybe we could listen to one more example. I see that the time is also so. So for a very short conclusion, I would like to say maybe two the most important things that through this composition and presentation I tried to connect some ethno elements as linguistic elements and also musical as Schwebungsdiaphonie with a kind of spectral and spectromorphological procedures. And maybe a more general conclusion can also be drawn that by collecting both linguistic and musical material from diverse ethnic traditions, the piece paradoxically reflects both the diversity and universality of ethno-based expressions that are related to the sound of a bell. So thank you for your attention.
Aistė. So you are very welcome to ask some questions, maybe a couple of those if you have, not more. No questions? Remarks? Can I ask one
yes,
little?
Of course.
One, I think in situations like this, where you have certain influences from, let's say, folk things, and it's very site-specific as well, and very nice and precisely done work for pre-composition. However, the performative or ritual aspect of it, as well as the space itself, how much does it give you, or what kind of role does it play?
So I have, how to say, aspiration that it would be realized in quite ritualistic nature, in I don't know, some camerines chamber, maybe spaces, or even not very common spaces that the performers and listeners would be in very close to each other. It was partially realized in the concert. It was in the Museum of Energetics. I'm not sure how to say. Yeah. We tried to do it by surrounding the audience with performers, and the bells were also implemented in all the space, so the listeners could hear the bells from one side and another. So I hope that it was the effect of immersion into the piece and to the space. So yeah, I had those ideas.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have a quick switch over. Vytautas, please. We are ending our session today with a presentation by Dr. Vytautas Germanavičius, representing Kaunas University of Technology, and we invite him to give the talk on his paper comparing Lithuanian folk scales with historical temperament systems in Lithuania and USA. So please welcome Vytautas.
Thank you. Hello to everyone. I'm happy to be here presenting my paper, and we'll continue this session. And my topic is comparison of Lithuanian folk music scales with historical temperaments of Europe and the Middle East. And here I will present a recent study and research of which was conducted in July of this month, of this year, in Kaunas University of Technology, and was first presented in International Symposium The Microtonal Village in New York City in last September. The main goal was to compare Lithuanian folk music scales with historical tuning systems in order to determine which tuning or temperament is characteristic of Lithuanian folk scales. Another goal of this recent study was to determine which tuning system is closest to the tuning of each song, and to set up a tuning that is common for all the songs, as well as to compare the audio recordings of Lithuanian immigrant songs in the US with those in Lithuania to see if they have some differences in tuning and intonation. In 5 previous researches I have conducted so far, including the study of microtones, natural intervals, and natural tunings in Lithuanian folk music scales, as a result, in a number of folk songs, I have found tones that refer to the microtones, to natural intervals, or to the tuning of just intonation, which can reach up to 11 harmonic. It was hypothesized that the European tuning systems of the 16th to 20th century, mean tone and irregular temperaments, influenced Lithuanian folk music and its tuning system through the spread of Christian music, especially organ music, which came to Lithuania from Italy and Germany. And on the other hand, perhaps the Lithuanian folk music interaction was influenced by the music of non-Christian cultures, of Karaims, Crimean Tatars, and Jews, who have lived in Lithuania since the Middle Ages. The Lithuanian folklore scales of the first half of the 20th century were chosen for comparison, as they are likely to have preserved the earlier tunings both Lithuania and the US. It can be argued that the recordings made in America may reveal other musical connections and influences acquired by Lithuanians living there. The research material was collected from the archives of the Institute of Lithuanian Literature and Folklore, the Smithsonian Institute Folkways Collection in Washington, D.C., and the Scheller Collection from the Lithuanian Culture Museum in Chicago, the Lithuanian Research Center in Lemont, in total 118 samples. The question was raised whether the music of non-Christian communities in Lithuania could have influenced Lithuanian folk music, which meant adding to the research Karim, Crimean Tatar, and Jewish folk music scales. In this case, I had to contact the Karim community living near Vilnius in the town of Trakai, but unfortunately, there were only 2 or 3 surviving audio recordings, mainly religious music or ceremonial songs, for example, wedding song, and the same situation was to the music of the Crimean Tatars living in Lithuania. As to the folk music of Lithuanian Jews before 1940s, most of the recordings were dominated by religious or klezmer music, and there are no surviving songs or recordings of other genres in Lithuania. So I took the material for the study of Lithuanian folk songs primarily from my dissertation, with a completed analysis of the scales. And in addition, I conducted a study of American Lithuanian folk scales in the computer program Meldine, determining interval distances in order to compare them with 13 historical temperaments. The temperaments of the medieval Pythagorean, 5 mean-tone temperaments, 4 irregular temperaments, an Arabic Alfarabi scale, and the scale of natural harmonic series and the 12-tone equal temperament. The historical temperaments were chosen to determine the influence of the tuning on folk music scales at the beginning of the 20th century, to determine the similarity of the intervals of a song to one or another tuning. Before the start of this research, I have conducted the head of Artificial Intelligence Center at Kaunas University of Technology, and also with the help of our colleague Darius Kučinskas, we found a mathematician who could help us to develop a research formula, Mindaugas Kavaliauskas. So we made a statistical analysis software R to conduct a comparative study. The research method was chosen. Now I will try to explain what the formula consists of and how the comparison of the scales with temperaments was calculated. So on the top of the page, you can see a formula. In the brackets, letter S marks a song, then SI marks a song number, first, second, and etc. SJ marks pitch number of a selected song in the scale, and NI number of pitches used in the song. So let's take Sij, where I equals 1, and J equals 1, etc., and I denote the pitch in cents, hundredths of a semitone, of a Jth pitch of the ith song. Here N equals 118 is the number of songs analyzed, and Ni is the number of pitches used in the ith song, which varied between 3 and 7 in the different songs. In the table on the right, here you can see the analysis of the first 4 songs. Similarly, with the temperaments. If you look at the table of the temperaments, you can see that F marks a temperament, then Fk marks the number of a temperament, first, second, etc., until 13, FL, pitch number in the scale of a selected temperament, and Mk, number of pitches used in the temperament. Let's take a letter FKL, where K equals 1, ML equals 1, and Mk denote the pitch in cents, hundredths of a semitone, of the elf pitch of a kth temperament. Here M equals 13 is the number of temperaments used in an analysis, and Mk is the number of pitches used in the kth temperament. which is usually equal to 12, but can take our values, for example, equal to 14 in Arabic scale. Since the pitches of both the songs and the temperaments are expressed in cents, their similarity can be defined as the modulus of difference. When searching for an equivalent of a distance of a pitch Sij of a song in the temperament of K, the pitch with a minimum or equal distance calculated in cents. In this way, the distance between a pitch in the scale and its equivalent in the temperament, the deviation of a note, is defined by the subtraction formula. If you look to the formula on the top of the screen, D marks distance, as I song number, as J pitch number, and K temperament number, equals minimum L, 1 pitch number, and K number of pitches. Now, for example, we take the distance number of a fourth song with pitch number 2. As 4.1 song is the table to the right. As for 2-second pitch in the scale equals 142 cents. We calculate the pitch with a distance number, for instance, for Pythagorean temperament, K1 from a list. Yeah. We can see the table that Pythagorean temperament is number 1 from the top down. And slide. Yeah. Now you can see the subtraction formula and the results. One pitch from a song is compared to all pitches of a selected temperament. Subtracting the tone distances of a selected temperament from the single tone distance of a song gives the result. When we take the smallest possible number, which is 52 cents of a second pitch. 52 cents is the minimum distance of an interval in the song to compare the interval distance in the tuning scale. Then, in this way, we calculate every next pitch of a song with the pitch distances of a temperament. For example, look at the last row on the screen. So, equals 51 cents, the minimum interval distance of a song S4 pitch 3, and the temperament K1 equals to 51 cents. Then the distance between the pitches of a song and the temperament is defined as the average distance between the pitches of a song in the scale and the pitches of a selected temperament. In this slide, we can see the results of a previous calculation of a song. Now, adding each pitch, we can see how close the scale of a song is to the Pythagorean tuning. The result is 33 cents. When we have to calculate the distances of the same song with the next 12 temperaments. The value k, for which the distance dik for the ith song is the smallest, indicates the temperament of the song. The differences in the pitch distances between the determined temperaments are analyzed for different groups of songs. Let me show you sample calculation for the song compared to the 12th tet. The recording is from the Smithsonian Folklore discography collection. The song has 4 notes, with frequencies expressed in cents. In this case, the 12th tet temperament is defined by 13 pitches, including tonic, or the interval of an octave. Let's calculate the distance of the song to the 12th tet tuning. Let's start with a calculation of the distance between the first note of a song equal to 0 cents and every note of a 12th tet. The result is trivial in this case, but we can provide the detailed calculation. So trivially, song's first note of 0 cents is the most similar to the tuning first note of 0 cents, with a distance of 0. Let's calculate the distance between the second note of a song equal to 200 cents and every note of 12th tet. Song's note of 200 cents is the most similar to the third tuning note of 200 cents, with a distance of 0. Let's calculate the distance between the third note of a song equal to 394 cents and every note of 12th tet. Song's note of 394 cents is the most similar to the fifth tuning note of 400 cents, with a distance of 6. Finally, let's repeat calculation of the last note of a song equal to 467 cents. Song's note of 467 cents is the most similar to the fifth tuning note of 500 cents, with a distance of 33. Now we have obtained the distances for the notes of a song, 0, 0, 6, 33. The average of these errors is the distance between the song and 12th tone equal temperament equals to 9.75 cents. If we do calculation to the natural tuning is defined by other distances. I will provide a shorter description of calculation by skipping the detailed calculation of every note of a song to every note of a tuning. The 0 cent song note is the most similar to 0 cent note of a tuning, and the distance is 0. 0 minus 0. The 200 cents song note is the most similar to 204 cents note of a tuning, and the distance is 200 minus 204 equals 4. The 394 cents song note is the most similar to 386 cents note of a tuning, and the distance is 8. The 467 cents song note is the most similar to 471 cents note of a tuning, and the distance is 4. When we add up all the results and divide them by 4, the distance between the song and the natural tuning is 4 cents. It can be seen that the notes of the song correspond better to the natural tuning with an average of distance of 4 than to the 12th tuning with an average of 9.75. By repeating the same approach, we calculate distances from a song to the remaining tunings. The obtained values are: the shortest distance, for example, the best tuning match for this song is to the previously calculated natural tuning, which is 4 cents. So we can assume that the natural tuning was used in this song. The research formula was first used to compare the interval distances of all 118 song tones to the 13 temperament systems. This table summarizes all the research material and shows the closest temperament or tuning for each song scale. For example, a selected row shows a song, the closest distance for each temperament, and the result. This was followed by separate studies of the vocal, instrumental, and Lithuanian American song groups, and then more detailed studies of the Sutartinės, monody, wooden trumpet, panpipes, kankles, shell collection, and Smithsonian interval song groups. All this material was compared first to 13 temperaments, then to 12 temperaments without aerobic tuning, to 6 temperaments, 4 well-temperate plus natural and 12th tet, then to 4 well temperaments, and finally to natural tuning and 12th tet. A comparison of all the songs with the 13 temperament systems shows that there are 3 tunings that correspond to the most example: natural, Arabic for 30 songs each, and 1.3 comma mean tone temperament in Francisco de Salinas 16th century temperament for 25 examples. However, if we exclude the Arabic tuning, the second graph to the right, which has a large number of natural intervals, we see in the next table that the number of songs corresponding to the natural and the 1.3 comma tunings increases to well over 30. Excluding the comma, Arabic, and Pythagorean tunings, and compare the 18th and 19th century well temperaments, plus the natural and 12th tet temperament, we see that the natural tuning has the most examples over 50, but the Werkmeister temperament appears in 25 examples. Comparing only the well temperament tunings, the Werkmeister 18th century temperament has the largest number, for example, with over 50, followed by the Narhart and Valotti 19th century tunings with 30 and over 30 songs respectively. Finally, if we compare all 118 songs with natural tuning and 12th tet, we can see that the natural tuning has over 70 examples, and 12th tet has over 40 examples. If you look at the separate group of vocal music, as in previous comparison of all songs, we can identify 3 tunings: natural, Arabic, and 1.3 comma. But in instrumental music, we see that the 1.3 comma temperament and the natural tuning are dominant. From this graph, we can see that the separate song group of Sutartinės, monody, wooden trumpet, panpipes that have the same tuning tendencies as the previous example groups, the natural, Arabic, 1.3 comma tunings. However, it should be noted that the tuning of the kanklist instrument is closer to the Pythagorean tuning than to the natural tuning seen in the last graph. Now I will play the example. This is a Lithuanian song performed by Keklas instrument. Aš sodelį stovėjau, I stood in the garden. Okay. This table summarizes all the results of research. The colors indicate the most common tunings and temperaments found in the scales. The yellow color marks the natural tuning, red for the 12th, green for the 1.3 comma, violet for the Arabic scale, blue for the Pythagorean scale. Thus, the initial comparison of the 15 temperaments, the songs clearly showed that the interval similarities of the songs with the natural tuning and the Arabic scale, but after the Arabic scale was excluded, its intervals fell into the natural tuning and the 1.3 comma temperament because of the number of natural intervals. Then, after rejecting Pythagorean because of a small number of songs and the questionable influence of the Middle Ages on Lithuanian scales, a well-tempered tuning was chosen for the 18th and 19th centuries that should be closer to the 20th century recordings, along with natural and 12th. However, the natural tuning has the largest number of samples. In the study of well-tempered tunings that may have influenced the scales of Lithuanian songs, thus Werkmeister 3 temperament, but when compared to the natural harmonic series and the equal temperament of the 20th century, the natural tuning is the preferred one. It can be concluded that there are many cases found of natural intervals in Lithuanian folk songs, considering that the temperaments of previous centuries had some naturally tuned intervals. Now we look at a group of Lithuanian American immigrant songs. I was wondering what kind of tuning these songs might belong to. These Lithuanian American song samples were selected from the 1910 to 1929 Sheller collection and the 1955 Smithsonian Folklore collection, and compared with the samples of the Lithuanian singers recorded from 1935 to 38. It's no coincidence that the Lithuanian American interval distances are placed in a separate group, suggesting that since the 12th influence was already prevalent on the American continent at that time, it may have influenced the tuning of Lithuanian folk songs. And I wonder if the tunings of immigrant songs may have differed from those of Lithuanian performers. From the first table, we can see that if we compare the Sherlock-Smithsonian collections, the 12th temperament has a slight advantage. But if we compare the recordings of the two collections separately, we can see that the Sherlock collection is dominated by the 12th temperament, while the Smithsonian collection is dominated by the natural, Arabic, and 1.3 comma temperaments. But let's take a single song that was recorded by singers in Lithuania and Lithuanian immigrants in the United States. In the example... Sorry. Later I will play. In this example above, we can see the interval distances in yellow of a monody recorded in the United States. The tuning gradually narrowing to equal temperament, but still maintains almost the exact interval of diminished fourth, 471 cents, or 21st harmonic, with the second degree equal to temperate at 200 cents, and the third degree approaching 400 cents. Looking at the intervals of 3 recordings of a single song and the dates of the recordings in Lithuania and the USA, we can observe a gradual approach to the 12-tone equal temperament. For example, the interval of a second recorded in 1936 in Lithuania is 191 cents, and recorded in 1958 is 187 cents, is almost the same. But from the recording in the US, it is 200 cents, recorded in 1949. The third interval recorded in 1936 in Lithuania is 350 cents, and recorded in 1958, 367 cents, only slightly changes. Far enough from the third of 400 cents for equal temperament. But in the USA, the third, free 94 cents, is already approaching 12 TED. For example, we can clearly observe the migration of the interval of a third from free 50 cents in Lithuania to free 94 cents in America. Now we can listen a short excerpt of intonation of a song in Lithuania and in America. Okay, stop. Sorry, one more. In America. In conclusion, the study shows that no single temperament or tuning was found in all the example of vocal and instrumental music. However, 4 tunings were detected: the natural tuning, partly the aerobic scale with a lowered second or third degree, the 1.3 mean tone temperament, and the Pythagorean tuning in the music of a congas instrument. So, to conclude, I have a new idea to compare equal temperament music with Lithuanian and American immigrants' scales, and to see if we have some close temperament of these tunings. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Vytautas. We have questions in the audience. Yes?
Yeah. Thank you, Vytautas. Was very great. A lot of work have done. And I enjoyed nearly everything, but one conclusion a little bit shocked me. Can you imagine how Karaims could influence Lithuanian music if Karaims music was religious and never widely performed? And the same is with Jewish music, with exception of klezmer. Yeah.
Yes. I will start because I found several monodies that we got allowed to the second degree. So I had an internship in Sibelius Academy of Music, and we measured these songs there. And also we had an instrumentalist, I think a singer from Turkey, and she said, yes, it's something similar to Arabic intonation of the second degree, like Mugam scale. So it was hypothesis, kind of maybe we can find similarities with Karaim or Tatar music scales, but unfortunately I didn't find any examples. So I didn't do any management. So yes, because I was interested, so I contacted Karina Firkovičiūtė. So she said only have one song, but it's a ceremonial song. So and to Tatar music also the same thing. And I contacted the Jews community and some people who knows. So they said all the music somewhere you have to search in America or in Israel. Maybe you can find, but they don't know about Lithuanian songs, Jewish songs. So in that case, I measured only the historical temperaments, and I took Arabic scale. It's a Middle Ages for Arabic scale. But also the Arabic scale has a lot of natural intervals. It's a few temperate. So all these measurements comes to the natural tunings, of course. So why we have, in some monodies we have lowered second degree, I don't know. But if maybe some influence, but I don't know from it comes. So maybe somebody will can follow this research and make it in the future.
Thank you. Very interesting track of research. So I guess, thank you, Vytautas.
Thank you.
We can finish. So we continue with further presentations tomorrow from 10 again here, and tonight there is a concert also here in the hall at 6. You are all welcome to listen to some Čiurlionis piano music. Thank you.